Everyone wants to leave a legacy of positivity in the world around them. Whether you are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a nonprofit executive director, or even a soon-to-be entrepreneur, one fact is always true. The easiest and most effective way to catalyze change in the world around you is through commerce and through business. But how do you do it? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Changemakers Collective, a place where people can come and get educated and encouraged and empowered to be the impact agent in the world around them. Brought to you by Silverback Ventures, Steph Thomas and Scott Woods have over 50 years combined experience helping companies and owners amplify the voice and multiply the impact of purpose-driven businesses. Join us each week as we discuss what it means to live a life of purpose on purpose.
Welcome to Changemakers Collective. My name is Steph. This is Scott.
What's happening?
With Silverback Ventures, and we are going to talk about just being lonely as an entrepreneur and what's that look like. So people, first of all, say that they're the only person that has this product and no one out there is like them, and it's lonely out there.
We talked last time, or the time we were talking about Corey's business, how starting a business is both, other than having a baby, is probably the scariest and most exciting thing you'll ever do. What we didn't say then is it's also one of the loneliest things to do.
Right.
Because even though, if you're a W-2 employee, even though you may feel some kind of way about your boss and about the organization, you're not alone almost always in those feelings. There's always a groupthink when you're in part of an employee group.
So groupthink. Let's talk about groupthink through entrepreneurship. We've talked about having a mentor. We've talked about real people come to work, right?
Yes.
So that's the same thing. If you are an entrepreneur that is a solopreneur, you're the only one in your business, you've got to do things that you're interacting with like-minded entrepreneurs.
Yes. If you're in the middle of being an employee, there's usually more than one.
Right.
So you can share your concerns with
you have coworkers, peers.
With your coworkers, right? So this is also true for those who have been a part of the employee pool that now find themselves being leader.
Right.
Being the CEO of a company, regardless of whether it's a small business or a multi-billion-dollar business, is incredibly difficult and lonely because there's nobody you can talk to.
Right.
Part of what we get to do as Silverback Ventures, when we first started, we thought it was going to be much more project-based, right?
Right.
Hey, we need this. We need to
fractional HR,
whatever the case may be.
Right.
We need leadership development. We need to kind of create a situation for scaling the business.
Right. I need a coach.
Very often it becomes, we're now part of the executive leadership team of an organization that the CEO or the president just needs somebody else to talk to. When you
bounce ideas off
when you're the highest person in the organization, you are not going to go to your employee pool and go, yeah, I really don't have any idea what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
A lot of conversations that we have are around that, right?
Oh,
okay, do I buy the new building? Do I charge higher prices? How do I even have this conversation with my clients? And
or my staff, for that matter.
Right.
How do I deal with this crazy situation that I can't afford to lose this person, but they acted some kind of way that they should be fired? Well, what am I supposed to do?
Right. So coaches are important for you. Entrepreneur groups, a mentor, or just a social-minded group of people, right? If you are doing something and you reach out to someone, let's say you are the house painter. There are other house painters that you can just say, hey, can I have a conversation? Would you be willing to meet with me and have a conversation?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will say, well, isn't that a networking group?
Well, yeah,
it could be.
But
it could be. But I think it's deeper than that. You're not going to tell your networking group that you're struggling with imposter syndrome and you're not sure how to make a decision about your business.
Right.
You're not going to tell your staff. Typically, depending on the size of the organization, that sounding board is often your spouse.
Okay, but let's say that.
Mm-hmm.
There are things now, I have a great relationship with my spouse, but I may not want to share, hey, I'm struggling with this, because if there is a financial attachment to
Implication.
it,
Yeah, sure.
right? I don't want to freak my spouse out about
Yeah.
what's going on, right?
Especially because it's not an eventuality, right? I mean,
Right.
it's with their you're you're going down a path of conjecture, like, okay, well, if everything completely goes sideways, this could be the result. And frankly, your spouse is dealing with the same stuff at their place of employment,
Right.
right? Your household should be and needs to be a safe space. And while you're always going to share what you're going through and how you're feeling and the emotions tied into it with your spouse, with your significant other, with your mother or your brother or your sister or your dad or whomever, you have to have let me say this, you have to have somebody you can offload that stuff to.
Right.
It is not an
Somebody
ideal
that's not just
situation.
going to say, I think all your ideas are great, go
Yeah.
do it, because then the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
Right.
You've got to have truth tellers.
Right. We don't always meet remotely. I mean, in our homes, talking over Zoom. We have coffee meetings.
Mhm.
We take ourselves out of just our office, because psychologically we have to shift things sometimes.
We're certainly not clinical psychologists.
Right.
However, being in the business that we're in and working with the people we get to work with, we see this manifest in so many different ways. One, you can have people that will go inward and not share anything with anybody and have a physical reaction to the loneliness and stress of their business. That's not good for the business.
Right.
You have other people that will just vomit out all of their stress over everybody or anybody that will listen,
Are
which
those the
also
verbal processors?
will cause your staff to lose confidence in what you're doing.
Or panic.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right.
So if I'm the owner of the business and I say, oh my gosh, we just lost this big account, I don't know what we're gonna do. We don't have enough money to make payroll. Da, 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 and I am just
putting my resume
and I
online
am
today.
just freaking out in the
Right.
moment because I don't have anybody else to talk to. You're gonna have a whole revolt in your staff. Now, holding that all in is just as bad as letting it all out.
Right.
So you have to have and create, as a leader, a space, a
Safe space.
personal board of directors, so to speak, that you're allowed and are going to be able to support you when you're feeling some kind of way, but also call you out and say, look, you're being stupid about this.
Okay, so you got to prioritize your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be realistic about what is actually going on.
Yeah.
I lost this client. Hey, but I'm not thinking I have 7 other ones over here. So, what is a reality?
One of the reasons, for those of you who are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I'm wearing a sweatshirt that says Hope Dealer on it.
It's a pretty cool sweatshirt.
One of the reasons that I'm wearing it is something that is part of our DNA at Silverback, is we want to be dealers of hope. And part of that hope is not sugarcoating reality, but to change your perspective to look at reality through a different set of glasses. We talk about all the time, you've got to, especially in our vision casting meetings, you've got to take off the glasses of current state. You've got to take off the blinders that say, I can only see my immediate 3-foot circle, and look beyond what is to what can be. And you're going to be able to have space to process through both the positive and the negative. Unless and until you do that, you are going to be caught in a cycle of isolation that will lead to loneliness that is going to be crushing.
Well, and Scott, when we talk to our clients, we may say, hey, so and so can I connect you with this? And I think it's important as we are helping impact businesses. We are impacting impact businesses. I think we do if I can pat us on the back, we do a good job of saying, hey, I don't know, you may want to connect with so-and-so.
Yes.
But there is someone that you can reach out to that is an entrepreneur that, so instead of you thinking, man, I'm out here all by myself, start thinking, well, who can I connect with?
Collaboration leads to innovation. It leads to transformation. Because there's nothing new, all the problems that have existed for time immemorial are still there, unfortunately, but they're just in different variations.
Right.
If you are in a business leadership realm, whether you're a solopreneur or a partner or a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, you have got to build in moments for collaboration that allows you to be vulnerable and say, this is what the situation is. I'm not entirely sure the best way to move forward, and be willing to solicit advice from everybody within the organization. If you have not done a good job of hiring the best people around you, shame on you, number one, but you can't have that conversation because if I think you're a moron, I don't want advice from you. But if I hired you and you're a moron, that's on me.
Right. So for the nonprofits that have a board of advisors, well, those are the people. So if you don't feel safe to go to your board of advisors and have, hey, okay, we need to talk through this, then either you don't have the right board, and again, shame on you, right? Let's
be straight.
Right.
We're always going to shoot it straight here. Right. Always.
But if you are a for-profit and you don't have a leadership team that you can bounce ideas off, that you can have conversations with, you're always going to be very lonely. You are always
not only
going
are you going to be lonely, but you are going to have a hard time growing.
Absolutely.
Because, again, we're not clinical psychologists, but loneliness creates a situation where you're either constantly seeking the approval of others to fill that gap, or you're retreating into yourself. And if you're retreating into yourself, you're not looking for new, innovative ways to do what you're doing.
Well, if I were going to coach somebody, we know that coaching means that the answer is in you. I'm not taking on a consultative role. I would say, okay, if nothing else changed, what changes?
Yes. There was a guy that was and I think I've talked to him about him on this podcast before, very instrumental in my leadership development. And I'm sure he wouldn't recognize me if I walked up to him in the grocery store and just kissed him on the cheek.
Please don't do that.
No, that'd be super awkward. I was going to say punch him in the nose, but that would be very violent.
Please don't do that either.
I wouldn't do that.
Because you're a hope dealer.
Yes. He said, nothing changes unless you change.
Right.
But once you change, everything changes.
Right.
And that is less about changing your actions, but changing about your perspective. It allows you, when you can get out of your chaos of the current and be able to look at what's going on around you from an objective standpoint, your perspective changes. And the only way to do that is to have people around you that can help you in those areas where you may have blind spots.
Okay, so let's talk about that, right? We often talk about strategic planning, right?
It's one of our core services, yes.
Right. And we talk about what's working, what's not working, what's broken, SWOT analysis. And feeling alone is a symptom of some of those things, right? So if you are working on your business while you are working in your business, and vice versa, working in your business while working on your business, and you're asking yourself some of those things, if you are strategizing what's next, then you can have orchestrated conversations that can lead you out of, I'm alone and I'm doing this all by myself, because you're inviting your team to collaborate with you.
Yeah. I mean, I think to your point, Steph, you bring you with you,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a leadership quality that all fantastic leaders have, and that's humility to recognize where your talents and your expertise stops.
Right.
You as the leader do not have to be the answer to every question within your organization. You don't. If you think that way, you're constantly going to feel underutilized or don't have enough expertise. It's an extraordinarily lonely place to be, because then you don't have anybody to turn to. If you can be a humble servant leader where you're thinking of the outward impact of what you're doing first, it creates an atmosphere where you want to bring other people into that conversation. That's one of the reasons we spend so much time and focus on impact businesses, because the company's focus is outward. We're trying to solve a problem. Well, if you're trying to solve a problem and you have a humble leader that is all about solving that problem and being a servant to the constituents you're trying to help, you create an atmosphere of collaboration. It's the only way to get out of that cycle of I'm alone.
Right.
And there are times, especially if you're in a service business, because I've experienced this, where you feel like everybody's coming to you to solve their problems and nobody's asking you how you're doing.
You know, I was having a conversation with a leader at a nonprofit, large nonprofit, multiple staff, board of directors, and the individual said, "No one understands the burden that I have, and
Mm-hmm.
I am
Mm-hmm.
I am
Mm-hmm.
doing this alone."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, shame on you. You've got a leadership staff and you have a board. You're not doing this alone. So where's your mind in set in
Mm-hmm.
this?
So
Where's your head?"
I guess the question then becomes, because again, I've been in that realm personally where like I've had
Well,
businesses
because you've
where,
had a
yeah,
business all you were the only
it was
employee.
me, and everybody, all of my clients, at one point I had 8 clients that were all consulting clients. Every single one of them was the executive leader or CEO of the company, and they were all asking me what they should do and how can I help them? And I'm looking around going, well, who's helping me?
Right.
Who's in my corner to help me do what I want to do? And it was a light bulb moment when I said, I cannot do this by myself. I have to have somebody that I can vent to, have my 40 acres, as I always say. I need to have somebody that I can bounce ideas off of. And my poor wife is like, look, I got other stuff. I'm going to listen to you, but there's some of these things I can't really
Do
help you
you
with.
rethink that now?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm that person to you now.
yes. Yeah. I mean, and again, you have to have
A person.
you have to have, I know for a fact that I probably have 2 or 3 people, you included, that I can call and just dump on and rant and rave and
Well,
scream and yell and say, all these people are morons,
right.
and I can't stand any of them.
Okay, but Scott, so here's the thing, right? I mean, we're partners and we are great partners, but I have a mentor that you don't have.
Yes, it looks very different for everybody.
Right.
And I think the fact that we have a partnership that's got very good defined boundaries that allow us to work together well. But if you ask me who is the person that I'm going to call first, it's not you.
Right.
And your first person is not me.
Right.
Because we have to have somebody outside of that. If you want to complain about what a moron I am, you're not going to call me and say, man, he's driving me nuts.
Okay, but Scott, that's I didn't mean for us to go in this direction, but this is a real thing, right?
No,
so
let's
if you
have this
have a
conversation.
partner,
Mhm.
right? So there's times that I'm like, okay, Scott, you hurt my feelings. Right?
Yes.
Okay, but as a partner, we have conversations so that we're not on an island on our
Mhm.
own within our own company.
Yes. Yes.
On the flip side, we have a healthy enough a relationship that you call your people, and I may call my mentor or my people that's not my husband, but my husband definitely listens as well. But it's a healthy balance.
Yeah, and I think this both Corey and Amy are fantastic listeners and help us be and challenge us to be better.
Right.
That's what a good marriage is, right? That's a whole separate thing. But yeah, if your spouse or partner or boyfriend or girlfriend is not making you want to be better,
Right. So
there's an evaluation there. But that's not the person I'm going to call.
No.
I'm going to call my brother and say, "Yo, I need 40 acres to just dump some stuff on you, and I don't need you to fix it. All I need you to do is listen.
Right.
And if I'm being stupid, you need to call me out and tell me I'm being stupid."
Mm-hmm. So I think utilizing some of those tools helps you not feel alone.
100%. Yeah. Loneliness by definition is singular.
Right.
It's very difficult to be lonely when you're in community with others. However, it is not impossible. You, like I said, you could be the president of a Fortune 500 company and still feel isolated and alone. And, our friend Gary Fry has a book called Silence the Imposter that's outstanding, that talks about huge corporate leaders that all felt like, yeah, I hope nobody finds out that I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Feeling that imposter syndrome is going to lead to loneliness.
Right.
Shine a light on how you're feeling, be vulnerable enough, and you have to have a space.
Right.
You have to have a person or a people or a group that you can share those concerns with. But you are doing yourself, your organization, and those you're trying to serve a disservice if you are isolating and not sharing the vulnerabilities of what you're going through with somebody.
So I know we've come at this in a several different directions, and I want to build some clarity. So first of all, you should build a team that can support you.
Yes.
You should be
Nobody leads alone.
Well, you're not a leader.
Yeah, if you don't have followers, then you're not a leader.
Right. The second thing is you need to be authentic enough with yourself to hear when you say, hey, we have a problem, and they say, yes, this is the problem. Not defensive. You need to be able to have outside of the business and inside of the business people that you can go to.
Truth tellers.
Mm-hmm. Mentors. Mm-hmm. And you need to shake up where you're meeting sometimes.
Well, and it's interesting you say about the mentors, because that's something I get to do now with amazing, world-changing young people every week.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something that I experienced at all when I was coming up. I didn't even know necessarily what that meant. I mean, I'm 54 years old now, and when I was in college, he was just like, all right, you just got to figure it out.
Right.
Too bad, so sad. Like, if you fail, that's your fault. And if you don't know, you better ask somebody.
Right.
But it wasn't like,
well, who do you ask?
Yeah, right. Mentoring was not a thing, at least in my world. So having the willingness, and again, I think leadership leadership is as much an attitude and a posture of your heart as it is a tactical, I am now the boss of these 4 or 5, 10 million people.
Right.
Part of being a good leader is having humility and a willingness to be vulnerable with those people you lead. People will follow people more than they'll follow an idea.
Right.
So you have to be willing to say, yes, I am not the end all be all of this organization, especially in an impact focused business, especially as an entrepreneur, especially as a leader of people. You don't need to be the solution to everything.
So you catch them with the idea, but they stick with you because of your leadership.
Yes, that's
whether
correct.
You are for-profit, nonprofit.
Yeah, that you need to say that again, because that's important.
You catch people with the idea.
Yes.
They follow you by your leadership.
Yes. You can have the greatest idea, that's going to impact the world and solve all kinds of problems. But if you are not a leader people want to follow because you're unapproachable and you're dictatorial in your attitudes,
You
you're
don't
not
paint the
vulnerable enough.
vision of where
Yeah,
you're going.
you're not setting an atmosphere that's collaborative. You're never ever going to have enough people to accomplish the goal that you've been given.
Well, and here's another thing. Everybody's going to feel lonely sometime.
Yes. Yes.
It's okay.
It is okay. There's that saying that's very prevalent now that it's okay not to be okay.
Yes.
I would add to that, but it's not okay to just stay there.
Right.
If you're feeling some kind of way, but acknowledge it, try to understand the source of that, talk to somebody, and you've got to continue to put one foot in front of the other. Because if you continue to stay where you are, you'll become more isolated and more lonely and more desperate. And it's a cycle that is very, very, very hard to get out of.
Absolutely. So if you need a coach, leadership development, whatever that looks like, Silverback Ventures is always a resource that you could use.
And I think it's important that we're a resource and a connector of resources.
Absolutely.
There's a friend of mine in Nashville, Tennessee, Neil Samudre, that's got a business that's called Entrepreneur, and it's all about psychiatric and counseling help for entrepreneurs. If you need that kind of help, that's what you need.
Right.
We can connect you to folks that can be a source of help for you. Or if you just need somebody to come alongside and walk with you in your organization, that's something we do all
services
day
that
long,
we do.
every
Right.
single day. People ask us all the time, well, what do you call that? We
Because-
struggle more with what we call it than
Right.
what we actually do.
Right.
It's a strategic advisory, executive leadership team supplement that I think is so very necessary as we are in a society that is going at 100 miles an hour every second of every day and trying to be better and trying to solve problems and unsure of how to do it at scale, because the person who had the idea in the beginning is the same person. You're still only one person. You've got to hire the best people. You've got to give them clear direction. You've got to enable them to act, to be able to support you in your desire to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. Otherwise, you cannot live a life of purpose on purpose. The purpose piece of it, we say that all the time, but the purpose piece of it is important.
That's a big deal.
You can't accomplish the purpose if you're so caught up in the swirl of your feelings and of your loneliness.
Right.
Very often, oh man, I'm going to get in trouble. You're going to yell at me when I'm about to say, your feelings do not determine your reality.
That is a true statement.
That does not mean your feelings aren't valid.
Right.
That just means that your feelings may be betraying what the reality of the situation is.
Right.
So find people around you that can give you truth and
Right.
give you eyes to see what's actually going on around you. But more than anything else, you've got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Don't stop.
Don't stop.
We are here to support you. And we say that all the time, and it sounds a little bit cliche, but that is our sole purpose, is to be support system for people that are trying to change the world.
Yeah, we want to impact businesses that are impacting their communities, the world.
Yeah. So until next time, find your people that you can share with on an everyday basis.
You don't have to be alone.
You do not have to be alone. Be good.
Thank you for listening to the Changemakers Collective. If you've enjoyed this episode, please help us grow our community by leaving us a review on Apple Podcast or rating us on Spotify.
You can also find our podcast on YouTube, so you can come and leave us a comment over there as well. If you want support growing your business and scaling your vision, visit us at silverbackventures.org or connect with us on LinkedIn.
Thanks again, and we'll see you on our next episode.